Hey, how's it going, guys? This is your boy Hazzed, and today we're going to be comparing 7.2.5 Frost DK Burst to 7.3 Current in PvP situations on the PvP dummy. Now, we'll probably do Breath, Shatter, spec, maybe mess around with a couple different other things, talk about some of the other changes I didn't include in the last video, and yeah, there's some nice changes going on that we're going to talk about. So let's jump into this. So we're going to start off with 7.2.5, and what we're going to do is actually get a grace period to generate runic power on both normal and PTR, because we won't be able to see exactly what the changes are unless we have this little grace period, and it will more affect PTR later on, as you'll see. Now what we got going on right now is we're just going to cap up on our runic power. What we'll do is we'll reset our DPS current fight on the target right after we take one of the dot damages. And then we'll go ahead and look at the DPS as it's rolling in. So we'll reset it right now. We're going to come in hard and just go as hard as we can. We got a proc early enough. That's going to be a good sign for us. Go ahead and lay in that proc again, keeping up breath. And I'm gonna go ahead and pop in power right then, relying on some more breath. We're gonna go ahead and try to cap off our RP as long as possible. As you can see there, breath's going on. We peaked at about like 800k, about 900k. I mean, nothing really important. Now, the reason I'm not using Syndragos's Fury, of course, is because that can be a kind of like a wild card when it comes to Frost DK Burst, as a crit can be insane or a normal can be insane. Now, as we see there, we peaked, 900k on 7.2.5. I'd say that's about average when it comes to the dummy. If I were to pop Breath with Syndragosa, it may be around, I'd say, I may break 1,000,000 on the PvP dummy. Of course, this scales your abilities and everything else down to PvP standards, and it's not all that impressive. I mean, it's fairly strong in current PvP as long as you can get it off correctly, and the longevity of it is fairly strong. Easy to CC out though. Don't really like it very much, but as we saw there, it deals okay damage. Now let's go over to 7.3 and compare it to that. Alright, getting on to 7.3, as you can see here, this is going to be probably my new favorite breath spec, as it deals the most maximum burst in the shortest amount of time in 7.3, and the burst is pretty insane. That's a new one. Anyways, Inexorable Assault is the reason why we're having such a grace period in the beginning of the fight, so we can generate the maximum amount of burst. Now, this ability, every 2 seconds spent in combat, not melee attacking any player or anything like that, you're going to get more damage on your next auto attack. So all that time, us being slow, not being able to get to the target, just being like, one day I'll get there, when you actually get there, you're going to have a lot more burst than you did before because of this ability. Now, to quickly show you what this ability is, and I might go into a little more detail later on, as we can actually benefit from kiting using this ability, and also this ability is going to give us the most maximum burst when used correctly inside PvP situations. So what we're going to do, and by the way, it only stacks to 10. I wanted to try and stack it to like 100. Normally, no, it only goes 10. So what we're going to do with this ability is, of course, spam our Howling Blast at range. Now, that's going to be the way you stay in combat in PvP. Unless you're being hit, you won't need to do this. But you can spam Howling Blast at range, of course, and still not be meleeing the target, and have Inexorable Assault up. And we want to stack it up to at least 10. Now, also, there can be gaps in between, so you can stand around for a bit before you lob a Howling Blast to keep yourself in combat. Now that we have, of course, all of our stacks, we've got runic power good enough to burst. We're going to go ahead and wait for this to flip around again, and then we're going to go ahead and breath burst the same way we did on the other server. And as you can see right off the bat, there is a huge difference in damage. Now we're going to early empower just to make sure some of the stuff doesn't fall off, and we're going to follow it up with the rest of the rotation. Now, as you can see, we peaked around 1.3, 1.2 million, which is about 400 or 500k difference within breath. Now, there has been times that it has peaked much higher. It's hit 1.7, 1.8 million, and that just really blows my mind. Of course, that comes from the I believe it's 21% damage increase now on all abilities, and of course Inexorable Assault, which can also be used to increase our major general burst, and this ability is amazing. It's going to take some of our weakest, I'd say our kryptonite, of course, is our slow moving ability, and it's going to give us a reason, or not really a reason, but it's going to give us a functional advantage to somebody running away from us, trying to get away from us because we're so slow. I mean, it happens all the time. And it's definitely something I'm fairly excited for going on with this. Now, the other thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and compare our consistency shatter specs from old to, of course, 7.3, so let's go ahead and take a look at those. Looking at 7.2 Shatter spec, we're going to go ahead and still allow grace period here, which with this spec I probably really don't need since it is more of a consistency spec. But of course, to compare the talents from 7.2.5 to 7.3, we're still going to need to do this. So we'll go ahead and maximize out our runic power, get closer to the target. I guess I only need really partial buff for this. Wait until, of course, that ticks around. We'll go ahead and give it 1 more HP until we allow it to go off. And let's just go for it. Now, with current, we should see roughly, I don't know. I'm not really getting downtime, so I can't burst correctly here, but that's okay. We should get about 600-700k. Like, this burst is fairly strong, but it's not extremely powerful as far as the breath spec, obviously. But as you can see there, we actually bursted almost as hard as a breath spec. We're about 200k range of it, which fairly surprising with this spec. And of course with this, you're going to get faster rotation and more damage. That's why I love it a lot more in BGs. But as you can see, it definitely has a little bit less burst, but the consistency is going to be a lot stronger. And we peaked at about 700k, 750k, which not really that impressive. Of course, it's on the PvP dummy. But let's go take a look at 7.3 consistency shatter spec. Looking at 7.3 consistent shatter spec, yeah, oh yeah, the raw damage with this is what I'm really excited for. We had about 700k, of course, back on 7.2.5, and we better just start up that little grace period right now so we can go ahead and stack up our Inexorable Assault. Make sure that maxes out, get up our runic power, even though I feel like maximizing runic power with the consistent spec when you burst is really just overkill. It kind of throws off the actual rotation that you're supposed to be doing, which really is confusing to me because you don't pop in power at the correct time to dump obliterate to maximize gathering storms. Kind of interesting, but alright, let's go ahead and do this. It almost fell off there, I wasn't paying attention. Alright, we're going to go ahead and reset this after the next tick. Runic stuff comes up. No, wait. Boom! Alright, let's do this. Alright, we should be getting a lot more DPS than we were before. Actually, right there, that was a perfect time to pop in powers since we can actually gun it back and forth there. We were able to actually peak over 1 million with the spec right in the beginning. But as you can see there, we're still keeping it up above 900k. Even the consistent shatter spec has better burst than the old breath spec, but obviously not better burst than the new breath spec. Beautiful. Alright, so we just gonna keep smacking on this thing because I really do love the damage increase. Now also, if we were to include Breath of Sindragosa, since the damage increase, we would deal quite a bit more damage on 7.3 than you would on 7.2. So I think I might actually try to get 2 Sindragosa crits on video, maybe. I don't know if we'll go that far, but yeah, it might take a while, 5-minute cooldowns, but we'll see. We'll see if I can get a couple maximized hits and compare the damage. And we might as well compare our PvE burst DPS compared to 7.2.5 to 7.3. So let's go ahead and take a look at this dummy. I'm going to go ahead and quick bursting on the target. I will use Breath of Sindragosa and just go all in, and we'll kind of compare the DPS out maybe at the 1 to 2 minute marker and see where we're at. We'll probably stop at 1 minute marker. As for breath, I don't really foresee it being the raid DPS spec, so Let's go ahead and take a look at this. Going in quick burst, I'm going to pop an early remorse, slap on 2 obliterates, hopefully I get a proc there, and I'm going to come out with burst. Going to go ahead and pop empower there. I do have 2 empowers since I have legendary rings, so my breath can stay out there for quite a bit longer. Throwing out big breath of Syndricosa here, and kind of keeping that up. Now we peaked around about 2 million DPS there. Breath of Syndricosa didn't crit. If it did crit, it would be about 2.4, but we're doing fairly good DPS here, and we're keeping it up quite nicely, and our breath, and we're going to go ahead and pop the second empower there, not let that breath fall off. That was really close. I was clinching a little bit, making sure that I wasn't going to miss that, capping out RP for as long as possible, keeping some of those off cooldowns, trying to generate as many Howling Blast procs as possible, of course, because that's going to be a major part of my DPS with this build, and just trying to strain it out as long as possible. Alright, so there we go. We got about a minute DPS in there. Finished the, at least the minute standard there at about 1.26. Which is, that's not bad DPS for a Frost DK trying to keep up that breath spec. Now let's go ahead and go over and take a look at 7.3. With this spec, I'm expecting quite a bit more DPS on 7.3, but overall, I'm not exactly sure we're going to be able to keep up as much DPS, hitting, of course, that 1 minute marker. I'm just going to go ahead and assume we might be able to with the 21% damage, but we'll see. We'll see. I don't know. We'll have to see. So I'm going to run in, of course, same way I did last time. Open up on the target. Hopefully I get a Howling Blast proc within the first 2, and I did, so that's great. Throwing up some damage abilities, bursting right there. And we're sitting at about 2.3 million. Going to go ahead and breath right there, 2.4, 2.5 million. As you can see, it's quite a bit stronger of a burst. Going to have to use the second empower there to keep our breath up. And obviously we're not going to be able to keep this up as long, but we are keeping up above 2 million DPS while we're bursting like this, of course. Fairly solid burst going out there. And we're starting to come down a little bit, even before our breath wears off, obviously. But we'll see if we can keep up above that 1.2, 1.3 marker as we come in here. And we'll know exactly when that is because our, of course, Pillar of Frost is on a 1 minute cooldown. Should have used... There we go. Throwing in that Howling Blast as we come into 7.3. We're hitting 1.2 mil already. And as you can see, that was definitely a pretty... we're sitting at about the same consistency at the 1 minute mark, to tell you the truth. A lot more burst, less consistency. So it's definitely going to be an easier burst to do on a target, let's say a boss or something along those lines. And then... it seems to be, I can imagine the consistency is probably going to be roughly better on 7.3, as long as you're elongated, of course, because after the initial burst with the major elongated spec, it becomes kind of the same thing, just of course with 21% less damage. So we're definitely receiving a buff on our initial damage and burst, and it seems to be our consistency in PvE with the breath spec is generally saying about the same. So I mean, overall, what do I got to say about it? I'm excited for 7.3 as it currently sets. Obviously, everything is subject to change, and pretty excited, guys. Pretty excited. So leave a like if you enjoyed this video, if you liked comparing the damage. Leave a comment if you want me to try some specs, different stuff. And until next time, this was your boy Hazzed.